Don't forget your friends and where you come from. If you are thief, remember God now sleep. And although you're robber man and you get well last week, you fall about the street, but you're beaten going steep because God is a side. How you mean? Brothers and sisters, good lady. How you doing? Hope you doing fine. Why you middle this mix up and play for the man like that and Johnny, as I will say. Real keen from a record machine to the spot when all I seen nigga rock and come in as I will tell you. Down you middle this nigga jump on twist, speaking of this, tell you about it. Sometimes it's hard, but try and you make it. Believe you me. In order to achieve, go forth and take it. Set yourself free. With obstacles in your way, you may fall before you rise. But if you really want good, your nose off the run. So get up and keep your eyes on the prize. So as part of your plan, you feel your ambition, and the Almighty One as your foundation. Hey, nobody get rich and switch because that's definitely wrong. Me beg you, don't forget your friends and where you come from. If you want to. How you mean? Brothers and sisters, good lady. How you doing? I hope you're doing fine. Why you middle this mix up and play for the man like that and Johnny, as I will say. Real keen from a record machine to the spot when all I seen nigga rock and come in as I will tell you. Down you middle this nigga jump on twist, speaking of this, tell you about it. Sometimes it's hard, but try and you make it. Believe you me. In order to achieve, go forth and take it. Set yourself free. With obstacles in your way, you may fall before you rise. But if you really want good, your nose off the run. So get up and keep your eyes on the prize. So as part of your plan, you feel your ambition, and the Almighty One as your foundation. Hey, nobody get rich and switch because that's definitely wrong. Me beg you, don't forget your friends and where you come from. If you are thief, remember God now sleep. And although you're robber man and you get well last week, you fall about the street, but you're beaten going steep because God is a silent river and you know him run deep. Throughout history, lots of great men and women went about things the old-fashioned way. They just kept on winning and winning. So strive, step up in life and go forth. You know you've got to strive. Remove the doubt from out your mind and let good flow.
Another week, another life class, giving you lessons that will last and last and last. Another week, another life class to help the future and remedy issues of the past. In this sweet nation mixed with different generations in a time of modern day frustrations, so many feel exploited and many, if asked, will tell you they are daily harassed. Daily stressed and taken advantage of, they say. No money, just modern day slavery coming their way. No one protects the present, so who will protect the future that is to come? Who will ensure that in spite of the clouds, the sun will come? And sunshine and bringing a day so warm instead of a generation feeling always harmed. Another week, another life class, giving you lessons that will last and last. Another week, another life class to help remedy issues of the past. And today we'll be continuing by delving into the truth, looking at an unprotected generation exploitation and harassment of Jamaican youth. Good evening and welcome to another JN Circle Life class. How do you do? My name is Brian Cuff and I'm happy to be here one more time. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you and from our esteemed guests. We have the young people. The young people are here. I say it, but sometimes I think about it that if I say it like that, it says that I am not young, but I'm not so young. I am young, but I'm not so young. So I'm going to be hearing from them. And of course, we want to hear how you guys are doing before anything else. So we're going to be launching our Thrivometer right now. Yeah, I'm going to be just sharing you some of the things. And you tell us how you're doing, right? How would you describe your current mood? Are you happy? Are you ecstatic? Are you okay? Are you sad? Are you miserable? How are you feeling? Tell the truth. What are some of the key factors contributing to the exploitation and harassment of Jamaican youth? Do you think it's the lack of awareness and education on rights and protections? And a lot of us, not even just the youth, a lot of us don't know our rights. Socioeconomic disparities and poverty, influence of organized crime and gangs, inadequate legal measures and enforcement. Again, today is a loaded day, and we want to hear from you to see how we can remedy the future. All right, remedy the past and prepare for the future. What do you hope to gain from this class on exploitation and harassment as it relates to Jamaican youth? Do you want to understand the root cause and consequences of exploitation and harassment? Do you want to learn about existing laws and protective measures for Jamaican youth? Do you want to identify signs and red flags of exploitation and harassment? Or do you want to discover resources and support available for victims and survivors? Right? So you might want to do all of them, but pick the one that closest fits how you're feeling, right? Are you aware of any existing initiatives or organizations in Jamaica that work towards addressing the exploitation and harassment of youth? So are you aware? Yes. You've heard about some, or you're not aware at all. So go ahead and tell us how you're doing. I see Amoy, I see Samantha, I see Omar. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Elizabeth, good evening to you all. How about, I say we have some young people. Somebody in here say we have, we got 2 thorns and a rose. I don't know where I fall. I guess I am the root that keeps the flower together. But we're gonna be hearing from them in a few, but I want to see how you're doing. So fill out the Thrivometer and let's get underway. Are you ready to go full circle? I like that, you know? Because again, I believe the JN Circle is all about holistic empowerment and looking out for you. So big ups to the JN family. And the votes are in. Let's look at how you're feeling. Most persons are okay. A lot of persons are happy. And some people are miserable. I think with the heat, I'm a bit miserable too. But you know, today's what the official start of summer. So it's going to get worse. But let's hope that we can see how best we can deal with it without running up our bills, right? Lack of awareness for number 2. What are some of the key factors contributing to the exploitation and harassment of Jamaican youth? A lot of persons, the majority is saying that it's a lack of awareness and education on rights and protections. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. And the second highest amount of votes went to socioeconomic disparities and poverty, and then the influence of organized crime and gangs. What do you hope to gain from this class? And most persons say they want to learn about the existing laws and protective measures for Jamaican youth. And the second amount of votes went to discovering resources and support available for victims and survivors. So panelists, they want to hear about some of the things that they can do to help victims and survivors. Finally, most persons have heard of some existing initiatives or organizations in Jamaica that work towards addressing the exploitation and harassment of youth, but not far behind, a lot of persons are saying they are not aware of any initiatives or organizations. And we hope to ensure that you are learning today. So feel free to get your pen and your paper And of course, if you're using your phone, you can make your jottings. So with me today, I'm going to start from age before beauty, they say. I'm going to start from my extreme left. We have Neville Charlton. He is the founder and chairman of Youth Inspiring Positive Change Jamaica Limited, and he did that in 2012. And it's an NGO that engages youth in development, volunteerism, social change, peace building, and adjunct fields. And Neville he's not shy, he's not nervous, he's
not at all.
He's just going to get the ball rolling. Neville, how are you doing?
Feeling good. I already made mention that, I feel old. I come off the young people bracket, just jump off it. So
that's why they put us on the wings. They put the youth in between the wisdom.
Okay. Yeah? So we're guiding them.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah, there we go. Then beside Neville, we have the rose amongst the thorns. Sometimes I tell people that they are sometimes the thorns, but let me be careful. She is a policy and advocacy coordinator, Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network. JYAN, that's how it's pronounced?
JYAN.
JYAN.
Thank you for having me.
Shereika Mills. Shereika, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Always happy to be involved in these kinds of conversations. So thank you for having me.
And Shereika is very young. So
I am 26.
That's very
Shereika,
young.
why should I give out the age?
Yeah, that's very young for Neville and I, right, Neville? Yeah. Yeah,
not maybe you, but
Neville, stay with me now.
All right, cool. But can't make the
we are youth, but older youth.
Okay.
All right. And the baby amongst us. Yeah, I this practice I say we're gonna say the baby, but I hope he doesn't come with the mic. The baby amongst us, Joseph Mclean, JYAN Youth Ambassador, Cohort 10. And for those of you who don't know, you should know that JYAN was implemented to train, manage, and coach selected youth. So Joseph has been trained, and he's now going to put the training to good use. Joseph, how are you doing?
Doing good,
Yeah. One good thing about Joseph, I know there's a lot that you're going to learn, but he went to Glenmuir, where my wife went. So we have something in common. Something. Yeah?
Yeah, man. Very much in common.
Not the age, but
the
Flagrant family. So, babe, if you're watching, I said Flagrant family, so that gives me a tick in the box, right? Yeah. So, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm just really enthused to be in these type of conversations because it gives me opportunity to grow mentally and also emotionally in tune. So it's a very good opportunity to learn. I'm the baby here. So yeah, man.
I asked off the air, I asked Neville and Shereika what they're most passionate about. What are you most passionate about?
I am very passionate about male empowerment. I'm very passionate about student advocacy. And I'm also very passionate about relationships. That's something that I really think, will change the lives of many because it has changed my life. So, yeah.
He's young, but he has a very senior and mature head on his body. So kudos to you, Joseph. I love how we sound already. Shereika, what do you think about exploitation?
I think exploitation is wrong. I think exploitation, well, at JYAN, we are primarily a human rights and child rights organization. So I will definitely have to say that that goes against child rights and against human rights, and exploitation is wrong.
And Neville, harassment. What's that? That's some big words today,
Definitely. I think both of them they are interconnected, especially when you look at exploitation and harassment. But for harassment, basically, especially looking at the space that I am in, we provide safe space. So one of the things is you have to empower young people about their rights, and necessary when they feel harassed, they don't know what to do because they don't know the necessary rights.
So it goes back to what I was saying. Because of a lack of knowledge, we have a lot of these issues. So let me give you a dictionary definition. Exploitation, the action or fact of treating someone unfairly in order to benefit from their work. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Harassment, aggressive pressure, or intimidation. If there's anybody out there, right, firstly, from you hear those two and you feel like you fit into that category, listen up. You're going to be hearing how you can be helped. If you know anybody, you know you can get the information and pass it on as well.
Not to break you, but can also look at the whole idea that harassment also means to fatigue. A lot of young people are fatigued emotionally, mentally, and physically. So there's that element of it as well.
Beautiful. Again, young, but he's got a mature mind. So let's look at some of the factors contributing to the exploitation and harassment of Jamaican youth. Initially, it was age before beauty, so let's go with beauty first. So Shereika, what do you think are some of the things that contribute to the exploitation and harassment of our young people?
Well, I think first of all that young people are inherently vulnerable. Like there are a lot of things that have to do with your age and also just the capacity that young people have as they develop, from childhood to being a teenager. And by virtue of just some of those inherent characteristics, young people are left vulnerable. We usually need care from providers, and sometimes that's not something that's possible, even from an emotional standpoint, from a financial standpoint. And so just inherently by virtue of being a minor, by virtue of being a person that cannot completely financially take care of yourself, that already makes young people vulnerable.
Neville, from your perspective as an older youth, you agree? Because when you get older, you are now more on your own feet.
So definitely I agree with Shereika, especially when you look at youth and especially when you look at teenagers. So you have to remember that they are young. They are just coming into their own, they don't understand the space. And especially when you look at the inequalities. So there's a disparity. When you look at the inequalities, if you are from a lower class, let's say the inner city, or let's call it what it is. If you are from the ghetto, you might not have those resources for like awareness and stuff like that. So automatically, that will lead to exploitation, especially look at poverty and the vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities. Guys,
right.
don't watch the list.
Right.
Yeah, the vulnerabilities, especially for young people. One of the factors as well is that at the end of the day, young people want a job. And you have to look at, especially men in today's society, some men, they take advantage of that. Say, let's say, for example, a young girl, she wants opportunity. And you can, and then someone, both male and female might say, oh, I can provide this. But at the end of the day, if I go get this, you have to run some. So at the end of the day, that leads to exploitation and that leads to harassment. And because of that inequality and they're looking how they can better themselves, they might fall into a trap of exploitation.
Wow. So, heavy. We just start out. As the youngest, you agree, from your perspective, that it is going along those lines, even where you sit and what you see and hear?
I definitely agree with both Neville and Shereika. There are many layers to the conversation that we have to understand when it comes on to youth being vulnerable. As you would have mentioned, one of the primary factor would be the lack of opportunities that our youth have. That's the primary. Statistically, it has been shown that the primary reasons are a lack of opportunities, there are unstable families, and most importantly, there's a high desire for young people to chase after fast living, fast life. That's the primary reason. But when we look deeper into the issue, we find out that young people believe that they don't have any power. And when you don't have any power, it comes from the whole point of view that there is a need and it's not being addressed. So young people only see themselves as statistics. So when you're seen as a statistic, you round off yourself from the agenda. You round off yourself to the next disgrace. You round off yourself from being put in position where you can participate in higher decision making. So this is how it comes from an institutional level. The government has been doing it, the church has been doing it, the school has been doing it. So young people themselves, they're seeing themselves as not being understood. Female believe that she's not understood in the education system. She feels as if she's not understood in the workplace because she feels as if she's maliciously being used by her workplace. The males, on the other hand, they believe that nobody understands them from a perspective that they're wired differently. And these are the conversations that have led you to try to find value where they can find it. So the nearest man on the street where them can flex with is that man that they feel they can get value from. And that is how many of our males are being exploited. And our women, they're in somewhat a better position. And I'm speaking from this perspective because they have better models. So that's just my point of view, because they do have the Terry Carrells, they do have the Miss Kitty, but our young men, we don't really have much. What we do have is the men on the roadside. And even when we get into the schools and into the workplace, these men that we do look up to, sometimes the average young man don't look up to them. So it causes a little, identity crisis. But let me not just...
No, I want you to remember that point, because you talk about young men not seeing role models. So Neville and I will jump on that later. But
yes,
very good points. You mentioned the fact that it's not just the communities, but the church, the government, so many different institutions. Wow. Children should be seen and not heard. When I was growing up, I used to hear that. However, it has changed, or has it? Based on what Joseph is saying, it has not. So we are seeing them and we are hearing them, but they don't think that the voice has any power attached to it. So we're gonna get into it some more. Neville made mention of the fact about the ghetto youths and the ghetto lifestyle and how a lower socioeconomic background plays a huge part in this. How big of a role is it though Neville? Go ahead, man.
So it's actually a huge role, especially looking at it again from my standpoint, where I work with young people from various communities, let's say Tivoli Gardens, right? A lot of the times when you look at it, they might, as I said, they don't know the rights. A lot of them don't know the rights. And I think, remind me, Joseph, I think the dynamics have been changing now. We are young persons now, I'm more outspoken. I think back then, and looking at the space and the development of the space, young people are more vocal now. So I have to say that, especially when you look at it, I think there are more initiatives around. I think more organizations are looking at how they can empower, how they can raise awareness. And let me be the devil's advocate. Sometimes it's not just for these organizations as well. You also look at that the onus is also on youth themselves to go out and seek opportunities. I always tell my volunteers and ambassadors, you have to go out, you have to seek opportunities. The information is there, right? But the thing is, you have to look at the power dynamics, especially looking at uptown, downtown. Literally, when you are from a higher socioeconomic class, you might have more knowledge, you might have more resources, more mentors, person that can shape or guide the conversation area. Later, when you are from a lower socioeconomic background, then you're basically looking at it and saying, hey, where can I get this information from? I might not have a Shereika, I might not have a Neville to guide me, right? But you're already in that space. So it plays a huge role.
So let me just involve some of the friends and the family in the chat. Omar Miller says the lack of proper policy to protect our children, especially in the government system, such as our school and in places where policies exist, a lack of compliance, and those policies might need to be reformed. Viv, don't worry, we're working on it. Amoy says in Jamaica we lack respect for each other, and I think this is one of the very important parts, because it's not just, we often hear young people have no respect. But Amoy says for each other. The elders have no respect for the younger people, and the younger people have no respect for the older people. And she raises a point about relationships that may be one of the factors that causes you to have a lack of respect. And Omar says, while some youth are open and vocal, they are misguided in most cases, which is what we're saying, they don't know their rights. Shereika, you made mention earlier that you love to be in spaces where there is meaningful inclusion. And even though we are hearing that the ghetto youth might have a voice, is he really being heard?
Actually, before I answer your question, I wanted to go back to something that Neville was saying about, you know, how vulnerable young people are when they are from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. And something that we have been noticing at JYAN, we saw a statistic come out of the JCF last year that was saying that almost 900 children were charged with serious crimes. I'm talking about aggravated robbery, children with firearms, stuff like that. And almost 900 children were charged over a 4-year period with these kinds of crimes. And when we looked at some of the instances that this would have happened, in a lot of these cases, these children were groomed into lives of crime. They were simply part of criminal operations that were taking place, and they're used because they can easily hide in certain spaces because they can fit into certain spaces easier. For example, when you're conducting a robbery. Right. And so in some of those instances, we saw where just by the fact of their environment and who they're close to and what they have access to and their proximity to certain activities, that they were literally just found in these areas and in these crimes. And when we look at even now, the direction that we're taking in terms of our sentencing policy, where now there are proposed bills that are proposing mandatory sentences of 20 years for children who are found guilty of murder. And we know that that's a very serious crime, but then also taking into account that, you know, the instances I would have just mentioned, and the fact that children in Jamaica can go to jail from as early as 12 years old. And if you think about a 12-year-old child caught in some of the circumstances I would have just mentioned, getting a sentence of 20 years, coming out of prison at, what is that, 32? That's really unacceptable. And that would have just happened because of the environment that they're in. So I really wanted to highlight that that's something that's taking place. But back to your question, you were asking about meaningful inclusion of young people in certain spaces. And also at JYAN, that's something that's really important to us. So we have a core staff, but outside of that, we have a group of usually 15 to 20 youth advocates, and we take them on for 2 years at a time, and they're trained in advocacy skills. There are lots of rights issues, especially that have to do with international law, a lot of things that our government would have signed onto in terms of obligations and things that they want to implement in terms of even, you know, the legislative protections that we were talking about earlier. And we talk to young people about you know, just how to understand some of these things and how to advocate for some of these rights. And we think that that's something that's really important, that more young people need to know, you know, what your rights are, how you can advocate for them, how you can get other young people to understand what their rights are. So yes, that's definitely something that's important.
Can I just touch on something that Shereika said? I love the fact that you made mention that especially the age where young persons are introduced into a life of crime. And I don't think enough focus is placed on rehabilitation, because necessary when they are coerced into join a gang at that young age, 15, 16, you know, I think we need to place more focus, because what they are doing, what the gangs are doing, they are exploiting these young men. Then the system and women, right? Then they are putting them in prison where they might come out worse than where they went in. And then the cycle begins, starts over again, and it's a continuous cycle. So I think there needs to be more focus on rehabilitation, especially of young people when they are exploited.
Yeah, a quick thing came to my mind. I made mention of ghetto youth more than once. I'm from Spanish Town, so I don't feel no way if it's a ghetto youth. But is that even a bad thing? Is that something that, you know, it's so ingrained in us that, boy, I'm just a ghetto youth, I'm not gonna make it. Is it a bad thing, and can a ghetto youth be a good youth?
Of course, definitely. And I can tell you that because I've worked with a lot. I know a lot of ghetto youth, especially in my circle. I'm a country youth still, you know, Clarendon. Yeah. But regardless, ghetto youth, especially when you look at it, a lot of them have a lot of drive and passion. The thing that they need is effective mentors, and they need safe spaces where they can engage themselves. Especially in the space. And I love the fact that Shereika also touched on youth empowerment. And, you know, oftentimes in a city, young men and women are actually more active in our programs, right? Looking at programs, and again, it all goes back in creating a safe space, because at home, they might be exploited. You know, you might have gender-based violence, you might have abuse in the home. Then at school, you saw everything that's going on. I think there was a young lady that was caught with a gun. Obviously, she didn't get the gun by herself. That's another place of exploitation, you know. So when you can provide that safe space like JYAN and YIPC, even with the JN through the JNWay program, you know, that's where you kind of shutter that and give them more self-awareness and put them in a safe space that they can come outside of it. And I know there are a lot of inner city youths within the JNWay program.
But you see inner city youth versus the ghetto youth.
I don't like ghetto youth more time. Just
so that's where I was going.
You know, just sound.
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
But I wanted to highlight too that.
Hold on, Shereika. Hold on. Joseph was ready. Joseph was ready.
You ready? All right, Joseph.
You know, would always let the women go first, you know, because I'm that type of gentleman. But, you know, sometimes I have to lead.
That's fine.
All right. So there is a school of thought that a lot of young people have, and it is that they're only needed for their input, but they're not really invited to participate in the output. So they believe that they don't have any power. Now, in a situation where we have exploitation and harassment, we find out that even the government and even the church and even the school, I'm going to point them out, young people are only given the chance to talk, but never to do what they talked about. And we have seen this issue in a lot of instances. For example, a lot of youth-led initiatives that are geared towards fixing or addressing exploitation, harassment among youths, they're underfunded and they're undersubscribed by the government. So our youth leader, as I mentioned, the definition of harassment, it involves a lot of elements. Youth leaders feel fatigued because they're trying their best, but nobody's supporting them. Neville, I don't know if you have been in situations where you have tried your best and you're not getting that funding to help that inner city youth or that ghetto youth.
The struggles are real.
The struggles are real. And that's why programs such as the JYAN program, it allows a person like me to speak. And it also gives me the opportunity to interact and to put forward my plans and my visions in a way that it is supported. Even if it's not from the government, it is supported from a bank. So a lot of young people feel that they don't have power because their voices are being heard, but they're not given a chance to do what they want to do. I'm going to touch on something that you really made mention. It's really important regarding ghetto youths and regarding inner city youths and the involvement of them in criminal acts. We have to get in our minds that young people are not just the victims. They're also the perpetrators. And if you truly want to understand the issue, you have to understand that data has proven that 86% of young men they are involved in gang-related activities and they dropped out of school before they reach grade 9. 46% of young men between the ages of 14 and 24, they are involved in criminal acts. That's youth, 14 to 24. And this is something that we have to get in our hands to understand the issue that young people are not just the victims, they're the perpetrators. So there is a need that needs to be met, and we have to find that need. And it's in the family, it's in the school, it's in the church, and we have to pay attention. So you can go, Shereika.
Shereika,
No, I was just going to highlight that we also have to see, when we have these cases coming up, also have to see these cases as opportunities to put these child offenders on the right path. So we would have had almost 800 offenders charged, but this was also 800 children that we could have, steered on the right path. And if we only think about imprisonment as the solution for the issue, then that's not going to be helpful. We have to think about more holistic solutions. So while they are imprisoned, which they very well might be, what about orders for their mental health? What about orders for other care, for family support, for them to do community service? So we have to start thinking about it just in more of a holistic way than to just send them to prison and for that to be, the end of our solutions for them.
We have a broken society, we have a broken nation. So even before we even get to some of those places, we have to fix what is wrong in the church, in the government, in the home. And that's where we're going, Neville, in the family. Family breakdowns, and we had Father's Day Sunday gone, and last week we spoke about modern day masculinity. The households, that's where one of the biggest issues exists.
It's so interesting because when you look at the traditional norms that exist in society, and I think these also lead to exploitation. Men are brought up, or men are trained that they must be rough and tough. There must be providers. Women are usually seen in the household, and as I said, some of these traditional norms that existed are actually breaking down, because when you look at it, catcalling, men on the road, harassment, it's natural, especially when you come from, yo, baby, sexy, big body, that kind of conversation, that's harassment. But men, they don't know how to interact or engage with women. Right? And when you look at masculinity, they believe that they must take charge, and they also have to look at, when you look at exploitation as well, men oftentimes see women as objects. See women as objects. So to them, to harass them, coming like nuts. And then, especially looking at the society that we exist in right now, we have that kind of attitude where, what she wear, she can get it, whatever. So that again is another form of harassment. So the ideas that are formed, especially when you look in various family structure, where the men are the head, the woman must, what's the right word? Submit to the man, those kind of appropriate. And then some families don't really understand, and you have to look at single parent as well. So when you look at single parent and when you look at some of those gender dynamics, especially within the family and the family structure, you realize that, hey, it starts from the family, Then they go out into society where my brethren say, yo, Davian, how much woman they can slap her, you know? And these are the conversations that needs to be had. And we have to have these raw conversation with our young men and our young women that, you know, this is not right.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes I have seen it, men harassing women on the road, and also women does it as well. So let's not shy away from that. Women does it as well. But oftentimes when a woman harass a man sexually, it's not okay for the man to speak out, because when you speak out, you're gonna be like, brother, what you do? You know, so we need to change that norm. And then again, men are also not expressive. So if they are being harassed or they are being exploited, they're not gonna talk out. Because at the end of the day, it's so that we must not show emotions, we must not talk out, we must not be expressive. And a lot of these starts from within the family structure.
Shereika, family structures, based on what you've seen from your organization, I do believe a lot of them come from broken homes. But do they exist in homes that are not visibly broken? So you may have a nuclear family and it looks well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think a lot of it too comes from parenting. I think that the way that we parent children, especially in Jamaica, you know, Neville was making mention of it as well. It's so rough. I'm trying to find a better way to describe it, but that's really, it's so rough. No, wait, but even when we think about, even if it was not physically rough, I think also emotionally rough. I think a lot of us grow up with parents that maybe are, even if well-adjusted in other ways, not well-adjusted emotionally, not well-adjusted in other ways. And it really takes a healed, holistic person to raise a child properly. And a lot of us, even if we have other kinds of support, that is not there.
It's all rough on Jamaica then, because there are a lot of homes, even though they have the appearance of being whole, they're not whole.
But this is why these conversations are important, because when we start talking and when we get young people together to have these kinds of conversations and they can share experiences, then there are other spaces where you can heal. You know, it doesn't just have to happen.
Omar adding to it that the parenting style of being authoritarians is ineffective, and this is the style most used.
Definitely.
So Joseph, go watch this, boy.
I agree with
and that's right. That's something I kind of disagree with, you know, because I think there's a misconception in our society. It's always said that men should be the head of the household, but really and truly, men should be the foundation of the household. Whenever you think you're the head, you exert power over people, and when you exert power over people, you take advantage of them.
So who is the head, Joseph? Me tackle you right there.
The head?
Yeah.
You can always look at it at the moment, but we don't really want to identify it like that. It's the foundation. Because so whenever the family is breaking down, it falls back on the man. But when he's the head, if the family is breaking down, it falls down to nothing. So that's my perspective of it. Now, 8 out of 10 families are headed by females, statistically. And this leads to a fact that there are not enough male figures within the family. When there is not a male figure in the family, it affects our boys growing, and it affects our female is grown, because females need emotional attention. There's a difference between being a father and being a daddy. When you're a daddy, you come and you go. Your presence is not felt. But when you're a father, your presence is always felt, because you have set rules and regulation in place to help those who are in need. I never had any father growing up. My father left me when I was 3 years of age. But I had brothers and so-called fathers in my communities and fathers in the school that would have helped to nurture me. So the broken family is something that we have to take a look at, and then we have to find ways in which we can fix it. Because really and truly, the fathers aren't normally going to be there, because they're busy working to carry home food for the family. That's our Jamaican society is built on. Men are always seen as the breadwinner, but you're not just only a breadwinner, you're also an emotional provider. You're also a disciplinarian. You have to be there. When a young lady doesn't understand that, you know, you have to, when she doesn't understand how to express herself, her father should be there to hug her. Her father should be there to give her advice about young men. And they don't have that, so they try to get that attention from males in the high school or other men outside who would give them the opportunity, and then they're exploited. They look towards their managers, they're exploited by their managers. I'm not just pointing fingers at anybody, but I'm just showing you the reality of what it is. Our fathers are important, and if the data suggests that 8 out of 10 families are headed by females, it means that our fathers or men are not playing an important role and the family is broken.
Can I add?
Just go ahead, man.
Can I add to that? So one, I was also brought up without a father. I was brought up by two very strong women, my aunt and my mother. So I wouldn't say that fathers are important in our society, very important. And I can't agree with you that the conversation is that women, the men must be the head of the household. I think when you look at it now, especially those are traditional.
No, I said the foundation. And
they don't even need to be the foundation. We need to break away from that. We need to look at now having a conversation with our partners, both men and women, because I know a lot of couples, very strong couples right now, say maybe age as you that have, and no one see each other as head. Both of them are financially stable. What we need to do is empower our young men. Naturally, men will always try to be that provider. But we also need to empower women that they don't need the support of a man. Right? That when they can identify and find themselves and believe in themselves, that's the foundation, right? And as within the home, especially as a father, as a mother, if I say to Shereika, listen, you're a very strong, powerful, beautiful young lady, you don't need no man. You can do it by yourself, and you have that structure. She is not going to get into that exploitation. I need anybody because she have it from the family.
All right, I understand what you're saying, but there's this book called The Mother Who Fathered Me, and I really disagree with that book, because a mother can never father a child. A mother does not know what an erections feel like. A mother does not know what it feels like to have a sexual drive. She can never tell you about it. She can only instruct you not to do something. But men or young boys are not, we don't listen to people. I have a little nephew, and I will tell him that don't sit on the bed. Don't jump on the bed. He doesn't care what I say. Run up and down, same way. But I have a little niece, and I tell her, don't do it. She listens, because, girls and boys are trained differently. And in that regard, you find out that a girl would be more than likely to listen than to rebel, even against the fathers or their mothers. But a boy would always follow what his or her what the male figure looks up do. So when he sees me washing the car, I tell him, don't wash the car, don't do it because you get wet up. As soon as I move in, take up the hose and start washing, he models everything that I do. So I believe that inherently all boys try to model after somebody. And if the father isn't present, the mother cannot sufficiently grow that boy. And he will always try to look for a role model to get that respect. So I believe that I'm not breaking you apart. I just wanted to understand the fact that there's an equal role that everybody has to play. And mothers have been doing a very good job. But sometimes they do a good job till they destroy their bodies. They work so hard and nobody, really understand that it takes a lot to grow a child. It takes a lot to grow a man. So the father has to be there. And we have to stop, we have to break the thinking, we have to disrupt the narrative that the father has to just come and go. He has to be there.
All right, pause before we continue, because I like how it is going, and it's going back and forth. Just a quick point before I hear from the female amongst us. So Joseph spoke about the sex drive, and I realized that somebody responded. But what he's saying is that a testosterone-driven sex drive, so to speak, women don't really know. If a woman doesn't know what it's like to be in a man's shoe, and a man doesn't know what it's like to be in a woman's shoe.
I feel like women can read. That's,
Go again?
I think women can read. I don't think there is anything so far outside of what there is to be understood about a man, especially that has to do with biology and science, that a woman cannot find out from a book to adequately raise her male child. I don't believe, especially if this is to do with testosterone and an erection, that is something that can be adequately read about.
Read about
Like
and
this
felt
is
is
not.
completely different.
Yeah, I
you know.
believe so, you know.
I get where I get where you're coming from, Shereika. I get where you're coming from, Neville. I get where you're coming from, Joseph. And we're going to agree to disagree somewhat. But the point I think that Joseph is trying to bring across, let's use a tripod. Even though a monopod, a single leg can do a job of sustaining the camera or sustaining. It will never give the stability that a tripod or a three-part system would in this case. So having the father, having the mother, both of them doing their roles equally, right? They are both important. Him don't want to call the man the head, but I'll say the man has the head and the woman has the body or the neck and the support system, etc. Just having both of them both doing what they need to do for the different families, because it looks different in every family, right? Then you will have a better family, then a better nation, then a better society. So I think that's where you're going. So we're going to agree to disagree. I see Neville ready again to.
No, you're ready. And you know the reason why I'm so passionate about it is because I know what it feels like.
But Neville also alluded to.
Yeah, and I understand that you're saying that. So
I can tell you when you say that a mother can, when your mother take out the belt and start to whop you, make you not go do it.
No, but still, she's now forced to operate in a role where there's a vacancy.
Actually, you know, again to look at the relationships around me and the parenting that around me. You know, the mothers are the more disciplinarians compared to the fathers.
Yes, because of the absence of the fathers.
No, the fathers are there. I'm talking about.
Yeah, but even being present don't mean that the father is present. You know? He's there physically.
I agree with both of your points. You know, that's why I said the narrative need to change. I need to empower men.
There we go.
Empower men at the responsibilities that they need to take. I also need to empower men that at the end of the day, they don't need to go around having sex with Jill, Jane, and whatever, right? Because at the end of the day, men have this mindset that they need to see how much bodies they can get. Mm-hmm. And what will happen is that they are going to impregnate a lot of women, and then they are going to be absentee fathers. So if we start to empower men, then that will lead to change that dynamic.
All right. So we're moving past that point, and I'm going to jump on Omar saying that he disagrees. It's hard for the mother to duly express certain things to their child, but having the support of both parents can assist and support each other. And you made mention of the fact about men, Neville, wanting to have certain amount of notches on their belt. And Joseph and I were speaking off the air about that particular thing. We're going to go into it. But I want to hear from Shereika. Shereika, as it relates to sex education. I don't know if I've ever heard, to this day, in certain circles, sex. Churches especially. It's been taboo. Even in 2023, in some churches, it's taboo. You cannot speak about it. At home, I said last week that if I am watching a cartoon and a kissing scene comes up and my mother is in the room, I am so awkward. So the lack of sex education or proper sex education in a Jamaican context, do you think that plays a role in the whole exploitation and harassment of Jamaican youth?
Definitely, it does. I think there should be a comprehensive sexual education program in schools, and that's where children should get information about sex, because also there's so much misinformation on the internet and so much that's so easily accessible that we have to have a space where we're giving children accurate information about sex, because there's so many places that they can learn otherwise. And you know, when we think about this as something that can also have lifelong consequences, depending on what happens or how you can manage yourself in an intimate situation, then it's something we should really address.
When I was doing my history SBA, I searched for my front page. I wanted a picture of a slave being whipped. And I typed in pictures of whipped slaves. I never knew those things existed at that time. But all the pictures that popped up, to go to what Shereika says, you know, it released and revealed a whole lot to me that, of course, at that time piqued my curiosity. So I learned about BDSM really early, right? What say you on the whole sexual education program or the lack thereof?
I think we need a comprehensive sex education program within Jamaica, and I think
not an overseas one.
No,
becoming
within
right.
Just within Jamaica, and start from in the home. and then at school and even up to tertiary institution. I think we need to get away from that. We don't want to teach our kids about body parts, penis, vagina, breast.
No, the birds and the bees.
No, we don't need that conversation. And I think there's a very good program on TV now that talks about it. I think it's an ad that comes on, and I think it's TV Bad Touch, Good Touch.
Okay, yes.
As that program is really good, right? And I think the narrative is changing, and then going back to the disparity, because when you're from a inner city, to you, sex is like none. It happens. It's like a day of life. It's like a way of life, right? And then also look at the music, where to them sex is a normal thing. I think the other song that said more enough girl and girl in a bungle, and it talks about the position or whatever, and that's where our young people are getting their information from. They're also getting from the media, they're getting it from social media, they're getting it from TikTok. Now I'm on TikTok. I see some women gyrating up them body and all of that attention. They want that sexual appeal. And we are in a society where sex sells. That's what our young people are seeing on the television. That's what we are seeing, the narrative, sex sells. So to them, sex is like an everyday norm, something that, it's okay to have it. And if that conversation is not being had, that, listen, let me be honest. If you want to do it, you can do it. However, you have to look at the age of consent. Are you ready for it? And I think conversations like those, I tell every day my virgin them reason. Let me get to the rapture. If I have my daughter, I'm not gonna tell her, I say, oh, don't whatever. If I have my son, listen, this is what you must do. Don't rush into anything. If you're going to do it, use a condom. I remember at my school, and I'm not going to call out my school name. I remember one time back in the days, I used to issue condoms, and then it was a big thing, and they had to pull it back. The ministry had to pull it back and say, like, no condom within school. I'm like, why not? At least at an age, let's say, for example, fourth form, you can start introducing it, because guess what? They are going to have sex regardless. Are not? They are going to watch porn. They're going to go on Pornhub. They're going to find all of these sites, and they are going to do it. If we can empower them, teach them the right way, and then you might mitigate against all of that teenage pregnancy and those young boys that have to drop out of school, young girls that have to drop out of school because they had sex and they impregnated, and then some of the men have to provide, and then the women have to drop out because the stigma, the discrimination, that's,
Yeah. How do we get parents and churches to talk about sex as a young man? Have you had the conversation with your parent, or any role model as it relates to your home had a conversation with you about sex?
Yes.
Good.
From my brothers would tell me.
Oh, your brothers. Older brother.
Okay.
They
would advise me about sex. Not to engage in it too early, because it has a lot of ramifications. They will tell me to pay attention, to focus on what is ahead of you. There's more to life than trying to, have sex. There's an education in front of you. So you plan out your life, you have a vision, sex should be the last thing on it, because there's so many consequences, a lot of consequences. So that's just my view on it.
So how do you get others to be in the conversation? As the youngest amongst us, how do you say to the churches, how do you say to mommy and daddy in the house watching, those who are online, talk about this thing?
It's really simple. Just take them aside and talk to them, ask them how they feel. Ask them, how does the body respond to certain stuff? Let them know that it's a regular conversation. It's not something that is taboo. It's something that you have to, it's a conversation between the parent and the child. It first has to start at home. And once it starts at home, then when they go out in the different places, they get different information, but the foundation has to be set from there, in my opinion.
I'm going to add to that. I think some of the best conversations about sex I've held within our peer groups are within our local man group, woman group, or local group chats. I think having that conversation, having that kind of support system, because let's face it, as men, we all have that group where we talk about sex. We have those
But
conversations.
you need the foundation from the home to guide you into that.
You know, honestly, even when you have the foundation, there's so much peer pressure that can happen that if you're not surrounded by the right people, no matter how you're grounded, a little pressure they are gonna get to you.
A lot of the things I learned was at school in my groups. Most of the things, 90% would be, so probably 10% I would have learned at home or adults, but everything was at school. So I agree with you. But it goes back to the grounding, right? So even though mommy and daddy didn't say X to me, I learned certain things and I said, boy, I'm not going to let this throw me off my career path and my life. So having the support system, the right support system, is also key. Man of them groups. Ladies have groups, so
Yeah. Yes. I'm sure that exists.
Shereika, not in any
But
woman.
I want to say that
Shereika not in any group. Shereika
no,
stand
I'm
firm.
not in any groups.
Yeah.
I am not in any groups.
Yeah.
But I want to say that even outside of that, the conversation needs to be more than don't have sex. Like the conversation needs to be wider than that. We have information that says that young people are actually one of the key populations now for new infections with HIV. So it's not just about, we're not having these conversations and everything is okay. It's that we're actually hurting young people by not having these conversations with them, actual conversations about how to protect yourself, conversations around how to know what you are ready for, both emotionally and also to be able to have a conversation about consent, because it also takes empowerment to be able to say no, and empowerment to be able to negotiate some of the things that happen during intimacy. And so that empowerment also needs to happen too.
And what is sex? Is sex or is it just sexual or intercourse? Is it oral sex? Is it anal sex? What is sex? So the conversations are
and I have to agree with you. And I have to agree with Neville on it too, because if you don't have these conversations, they might get hurt because they have it at their fingertips. You can go on your phone and research it. So if you don't tell them and let it be comfortable in that space, you're going to get it elsewhere. And sometimes that information is not always right.
That's how they get exploited.
There we go.
So parents and the church, we have to do, and I'm picking those two in particular because they are the ones that, before even government intervention comes in, they are the ones that are really laying the foundation, using Joseph's word. And it's important that we get it done. Don't be afraid. If you don't have the conversation, think about what may happen or what will happen if you don't have the conversation. Don't think about if you have it, she might go get interested. She's interested already. He's interested already. Yeah, we're human beings. Our body is actually leading us along that line. Anyway you take it, so guide them to that path. And Joseph, I don't know if you want to talk about, but Joseph is trying to be one of the difference makers.
Yes, the word trying is a really good word because it's not easy. It's not easy to hold firm, but you have to have a vision for yourself. Where you see
we
yourself.
Talk about abstinence.
Yeah, you have to have a vision for yourself. You know where it's going to lead you. So you have to just focus on what's really important. Because I know a lot of young people out there, they're saying that, how can I resist this urge? How can I really do it? But it first has to come for a vision that you have for yourself. And you commit yourself and discipline it. And if you don't know how to do it, you seek out others who have done it before you. And that's just it, in my opinion.
All right, let's take a quick break from the heavy lifting, give them a chance to drink some water. And I'm going to ask 2 questions for a giveaway. So you have to answer both of them. All right? So 2 questions for a giveaway. The first of the one question, there's one question with 2 parts. What does JYAN stand for? Yeah. And when was Youth Inspiring Positive Change founded? You have to be listening and keeping notes.
Can I answer?
No.
We get it, and they're getting like a $50,000 voucher or a $20,000 voucher.
No, sir.
Me a giveaway,
I never see Celia so fast yet. Do not put any figures to it. They will be receiving a gift. All right. So you have to answer both of them doing a Ralston and
come Ralston, my chair fail.
Come on, Ralston. You need the next one. Here we go. Somebody said the first one, I think, Yeah? It's a 2-part question, Ralston.
I think maybe you should repeat it.
See, Grayson is a two-part question. Come on, man.
Just put the both of them together and you win.
Hello. You are helping them.
Put the both of them together.
Who will go first?
Copy and
Will it
paste.
be Ralston? Will it be Grayson? Will it see them all a show the JYAN shirt like a while ago to help somebody? Come on. No, it don't work like that, Ralston. 5, 4, 3, 2. Nobody. All right. No winner right there. No winner. Sorry, Ralston, you didn't win. Grayson, you didn't win. You came this close. This close.
Give them another shot.
Well, Celia, you will tell me if somebody win. All right. Let's get into the community. So we spoke about the church and family. Community organizing. Losanet. You see? So this is how it went, Grayson and Ralston. The both of you were almost at the finish line and Losanet just run past. So congratulations, Losanet. And Ralston coming in with a quick late second. Just a little too late. All right. So congrats, Losanet. And feel free to share your gift with Neville. He'll reach out to you.
Hopefully it's food.
Community organizations and local authorities, how can they work to protect? So you are talking about your organization. Tell us a little bit more about what you do. How can you reach? How are you reaching the youth? And
okay.
Yeah.
So earlier I would have spoken about our advocacy council where we do the training. So I won't go over that aspect. Right. So that's one aspect of our work.
Touch it for those who may have missed
it. Yeah. So well, I think the call is actually open now. So we actually have applications open now if you are 15 to 24 to apply to be part of our advocacy council. And this is a group of young people that are passionate about issues that affect young people and who also are passionate about making change in their communities.
So you have to be between 15 and 24?
Yes.
Okay.
And we train them over a 2-year period on how to advocate for different issues. And in this time, because of their connection to us, they're also exposed to other advocacy activities. For example, we send letters to different stakeholders. So we had a conversation with the Ministry of Health earlier this year to talk about mental health in schools. Recently, we would have made a submission on the issue I was talking about earlier, the mandatory sentences. Right. We would have written a paper to Parliament talking about this issue, and we'll be speaking on the issue further before them in July. And so that's some of the things that we do, legislative and policy advocacy, to actually have changes that will be sustainable and that will lead to some actual change for young people.
Pause. Do I need to have prior training?
No. So that's something that we would do within our network. So our executive director as well as me, we're both attorneys. So we also do training in just legislative reform and legislative advocacy, policy advocacy, so that young people can actually learn about how to go about advocating for sustainable change. Because we think once we get it to legislation and once we can write it down there, then that's something that's more effective than, one-to-one conversations even. So we aim to do that.
In 30 seconds, what does training look like? A lot of young people might be like, no, I don't want no training. I'm going to have to sit down in classroom with pen and paper.
Oh, it definitely kind of looks like that. Yeah. If we want to make recommendations that make sense, and if we want to be advocates that are impactful, we have to spend time doing research, and we have to spend time actually learning about the issues and how to properly advocate for them if we want to come up with good solutions. And so it will definitely look like taking some time to sit through PowerPoint presentations, learning how to, for example, write letters to the editor in the newspaper to talk about issues you're passionate about. We write press releases. And so you can see us in the media all the time. And you can also follow us on Instagram to see some of the things that we're talking about.
What's
at
the IG
Youth Advocate JA, to see some of the things that we do.
It sounds like you have it. You don't need any support anywhere. You don't need any financial support. You don't need anybody else to come on board, right?
And that's actually something that youth advocates can get training into to figure out how to get funding for their organizations. We personally write for our grants to get funding for the projects that we do. And so that's something we are also open to teaching to other youth organizations. And so, that's something you can also learn by.
So in one sentence for June Perrin, how do you go about being a part of JYAN? You have to be
15 to 24, and applications are currently open. So visit our Instagram at Youth Advocate JA, and you will see the link is in our bio with the application form.
Okay, all right. I see Trishana Archer Thompson. I think Trishana, you're part of the JN circle in Manchester, I believe. Big ups to you. She's my friend as well. And she's doing her part with the Explorer. And Omar saying he's a part of JYAN when he was younger. The sessions were very empowering and assisted in his current job.
I love that.
All right, Neville, your turn. What is your organization doing? How can people get to be a part of it?
So contrary to Shereika, our training sessions are fun, not a lot of pen and paper, and we
You have to have the balance, man.
Yes, definitely.
I personally do not like PowerPoint presentations. I think through the years I've been through so much trainings with programs where I remember when we were doing the Respect Jamaica Youth Ambassador program, one of the key things was too much PowerPoint presentations. Anyway,
we have different type of learners out there, right?
So basically we do a lot of training, volunteerism, advocacy, and leadership, and also networking. I believe that is critical, especially for young persons, that they should be able to network. So what we do, especially in our spaces, with a volunteer and organization, let's say, for example, the Grace Kennedy Foundation, we introduce them to the CEO, they can have that conversation with the CEO, as well as other organizations such as Digicel that I used to work at, also did some work with UNICEF, UNDP as well. So we provide that space for young persons as well. We provide a safe space. And our safe space is really a space where young persons can come together and have fun and have food. Let me not leave out the food.
Yeah, advocating the food.
I am a big advocate for food. I don't believe
that.
A
hungry man is a hungry man.
I think we have gotten the most turnout when we tell them that there's food unlimited. And I can tell you as well, I remember when I used to volunteer with JN Foundation, like there was unlimited food. That was one of the reasons why I got into
it. Make sure unlimited food is outside.
At that point, I was a serial volunteer. And I can tell you, I have to big up to the Jane family, because when I started volunteering with them at the time, I think maybe a lot of you guys are babies, but the Jane Action Program, it was very, very, very fundamental, especially in where I am now. It really laid the foundation. I remember at the time the CEO, Safri Brown, and Chevanese Peters, that was there, and Anna Kim, they really helped in project management, how to manage project. And I think an important thing that the JN did, so that's one thing. So I modeled it off the action program, where they allowed us, to execute a lot of the events that they were going, a lot of the activities. So within my own organization, I modeled it off that at the end of the day, I don't believe that we should be working for the young people alone, but we should be working with them. And I think it goes back to what David said. So what we provide is a space for them to come and say, hey, you are from Tivoli, you are from retirement, what do you want to be seen in it? Because you have to realize that different youth have different issues that affect them. So let's say, for example, I remember we got a grant from UNDP, and one of the things we asked them, what do you want to do? And they said that young people don't know how to resolve conflict. Right. So we did an entire...
Old people too, sir.
Yeah, but we're focusing on young people. So we did an entire conflict resolution curriculum, and then we selected young persons from across Jamaica, and we trained them in conflict resolution, mediation as well. Food was there, and the fun was there as well. And then we had a thing where we had other stakeholders come in and had that conversation. Fun fact, couple of our ambassadors are now working. They are still within the space. One went on to mediation training. And but the organization, basically, if you want, you can follow us. We're not taking on any volunteers currently. Honestly.
The age group would be the same?
Mine, it goes up to 29. Okay. Up to 29, and you can start as young as 12. But you just have to parental approval. Yeah. But I believe that from a young age, you have to ensure that you provide that safe space, and you have to ensure that space is fun, because at the end of the day, young people don't want to go into a space where they're reading. They do that at school, right? So when you can provide that safe space where they can engage and they can have these mentors, and our ambassadors will also mentor each other. So let's say, for example, you are a lawyer, a policy, and we can have that conversation as well. Let's say, for example, a doctor, a JP. So create that connection, that linkages. So all our young persons are connected.
Here's my question now. Maybe devil advocate before I come to you and ask you about safe spaces and what it really means for you and for your age group. So, when we work together,
Never
No.
worked
No?
together. When we came in, I was actually asking him about his organization, but I think that's something that can definitely happen.
Yeah, actually, I when we started, I knew JYAN from back then. I saw the work that they did, and I said, especially from an organization perspective, what you have to do is adapt and pivot. You have to look at what other organizations are doing. You can also model them as well. And you can also collaborate.
Which I am going to continue on that line. So JYAN is being defended that they have food too and good location. So
We're not saying no.
Omar is making sure that is known. So
Mm-hmm.
let me tell you why I asked that, because there are a lot of different groups and organizations that have their own mandates and they work so selfishly along a certain line. Apart from the sponsorship part, if you're aligned to X and you're aligned to Y, you can't do certain things. But the power of two is better than the power of one. So that's why I was asking. So I'm looking forward to hearing that there's some collaboration.
Yes.
You know, funny enough, you want to go ahead, Shereika, before?
No, you can go ahead.
So you see, the thing is, we collaborate with any and anybody. Honestly, I believe that collaboration, and I think it's SDG 17, partnership for the goals. I think partnership is very essential in any organization. I think too often you might have a youth group or a youth organization that believe that, hey, I am about
We are
this.
the ones, yes.
Is this?
Yeah.
If me do this, if JYAN are gonna do this, I positive
not
are gonna do
doing
this,
it.
them not gonna,
Right.
me not tell them. At the end of the day, if we come together and we knock head together, we can make a really beautiful impact. Because even when UNDP was giving out the grants, I think they got some, I think Deontay and Dana, which is with JYAN, were some of the interns at UNDP.
Right.
And I remember when they were talking about the programs and JYAN and even the other organizations that they gave the grant, what I was saying is like, okay, so you guys don't know how to manage your budget.
Right.
And I was helping an organization
There you
manage
go.
the budget. Another organization might not don't know to do
There you
social media
Right.
campaigning. I'm like, okay, here what?
Right.
I can put you to the link, you know this person, that,
There you go.
and
There you
it
go.
works.
There you
And I
go.
think partnerships is actually a big part of what happens in the advocacy council, because we end up getting advocates who are also part of other organizations. So a lot of our advocates are part of youth parliaments. They're part of, national secondary student council. They take part in other initiatives. And so through them, we would try to get in touch with their other networks. And that's how our advocacy network works.
So that's one way young people are making a change, by working together. Hey, I don't know
definitely.
this. You know it. Can you assist me there? So I say, yeah, all right. So
And just to add to that, especially looking at the theme, when you create these safe spaces like JYAN and Positive or JYAN, young persons are less likely to be exploited because of that strong support or that safe space behind them.
Yeah.
there you go. So Joseph, we've not heard from you for a while, but I want to know. So firstly, tell us about how JYAN, how they've helped you and others who have been a part of the program. And then tell me when you talk about the safe space, because it's gonna come up in you talking about JYAN. But I've heard safe space so often these days. It's one of the buzzwords. But what does it really look like and mean to you as a young man?
All right, so safe space is, that place where you can actually express yourself freely. Whatever is on your mind, whatever you feel, is bothering you, you're allowed to say it without being discriminated or being overly criticized. And we need these type of spaces to allow people to communicate, our women, our young people, our men. These spaces are really important. So having that safe space allow, if you can't have it elsewhere, you can always have it, amongst organizations. In Janeway, there are a lot of safe space zones that we're given to, to meet and talk about certain topics. One case in point, this session that we have now, Janeway has provided me with this opportunity to come here and talk about stuff that I would want to talk about. There are instances where we have youth month initiatives that we participate in. We're ambassadors, so we're always going out and interacting with young people. We're talking about young people from 3 years old right up until they're 21, they're 22. We're always interacting. When we go to school, we're always invited to represent a company that represents young people. When somebody sees me in a JNWA shirt, they're saying that, yes, that company is always about youth. And this is something that I'm just really passionate about when it comes on to being a part of an organization that values, youth involvement and youth empowerment, and JNWA, embodies that.
So for example, let's say we have a safe space, and somebody, when we were talking about modern day masculinity last week, one of the points that they raised was for men to communicate, we need a certain safe space that isn't necessarily deemed a safe space. So we don't say, all right, we have a safe space, men, come and talk. You set up a TV, you put on FIFA, you put on a PlayStation, and one man start play, then by the time you go away and come back, you have 10, 15, them talk about everything. When you are not playing, you have a conversation about life. You go to a football field, you go to a barber shop. So what does a safe space look like outside of here? So what are some of the other things you would like to see in safe spaces, or you believe should be in safe spaces to have these conversations?
As you mentioned, we need more, we're definitely going to need more community engagement. You know, for example, we need a lot of more youths, you know, participating in sporting activities. You know, that's very important. We need a lot of therapeutic sessions that it's not necessarily formal, but it allows you to just talk about it. Like, you know, normally when you're in high school, for example, you would have to book a session with a guidance counselor, but you do have peer counselors, you do have your class monitor and those stuff. If we're able to train them, as Neville would mention, you know, in areas of mediation and conflict resolution, we're able to have some fun engagement. We can say one day, you know, we're gonna play some FIFA, as you mentioned, everybody just come around, and then the class monitor or the peer counselor is not just seen as somebody that is over you, but somebody who understands you, and they talk to you and they engage in different activities. Safe spaces, for example, you know, footballers engage with each other. Instead of always training, they have sessions where they can talk about certain stuff that are affecting them in schools, you know, certain topics that they won't be able to talk about in class. But these sessions are really important, that we can narrow it down amongst or narrow it down based on sports. We can narrow it down based on interest and engagements. So that's just my view on it.
Shereika, you made mention of your IG page. You guys are on Facebook?
Yes, we're on Facebook, Twitter? Instagram, Twitter. Yes.
Snapchat?
No.
What else?
No, that's it. Those three.
Those three.
Yeah.
You guys?
Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
All right. So fit. So we want to look at regulation of social media, but how are you guys, and ladies first, dominating the space, sponsored posts, weekly, daily, whatever, to help to talk about exploitation and harassment?
So, for example, when issues happen, like the incident with the 8-year-old the other day, that was really, I mean, I can't say enough about that. You know, we would have put something out on our page to talk about this, to draw attention to the issue. Sometimes when things like violence in schools, we try to give recommendations and tag, for example, or politicians are on Twitter. They're there all the time. And so if they can use that space to talk to us, I feel like we can use that space to talk to them as well, and let them know some of the things that we want them to hear. And since we're already there so much, you know, maybe we can use that also as a space to advocate for ourselves. So we use that as well. We have webinars, forums online where we get together to talk about stuff, even limes for youth advocates to talk about across the Caribbean too. It's not just Jamaican advocates that are there. And, you know, you can, if you're following us on social media, you'll get to see more of those opportunities when we have those things, and you can attend and be part of, you know, a space where young people are involved in. It's really about active citizen participation. You know, we are constantly talking about the things that are happening around us, and that's important.
I forgot TikTok. You're on TikTok?
No, we're not on TikTok.
You guys on TikTok? I think that is.
Jane is on TikTok.
No, not you.
Is not on TikTok.
Jane is on TikTok.
Jane is Facebook,
Instagram, everywhere.
The reason why I'm thinking about it is and I'm in trouble. June Perrin, she's my aunt, and she was asking about how you can join. And I know she's not on Instagram, and I think she's on Facebook.
Oh, we have a website. So it's youthadvocateja.org. So.
All right. So the older people may be on the websites and the Facebook, but the younger people are on the Instagram and the TikTok. What are some of the things that you guys are doing and you can do to make, if you realize everything is about edutainment now, so you have to have entertainment value to get the young people there, to keep them there. how are we using the space to go against the odds as it relates to exploitation and harassment?
All right, so first let me make mention that it's really hard to regulate social media. So that's a key thing, especially to regulate it, young people from exploitation. And I'm going to use TikTok because I use TikTok, find myself scrolling on TikTok, and I realize that more and more I'm looking at various.
Why Shereika laughing? You don't look at the man TikTok, Shereika?
No, because I know how it is. You
Okay,
just sit there
okay.
and
And
2 hours
no,
will
but
pass. You don't
listen.
even.
So
Yeah.
before I get into
Yeah.
what the organization is doing, looking at the space, it's really hard to regulate it.
Yeah.
And then especially looking at it because a lot of times, a lot of young people have their cell phones and there are a lot of predators online.
Yeah.
And we have to teach our children what to post, how to post it, what not to do. I'm scrolling on TikTok and I'm seeing some young girls winding up, gyrating on social media, and they do it for the cloud, they do it for attention, right? So that's one thing. Social media is really difficult to regulate. But however, as it relates to us, we do a lot of work as it relates to gender-based violence, as well as peace building. So similar to Shereika as well, we do a lot of webinars. We also let persons that's learned in the space to come in and have that conversation. We also do infographics and we do videos. So also get influencers, post their videos, talk about some of these issues, and we post it online. We have been on a short hiatus for a little while because of the advent of COVID, and we have pivoted and we are actually doing more in-person activities now after COVID. But we used to do our tweet ups where we used to have that conversation, regular conversations, that person join on the conversations, just express themselves. You have the Instagram live. Don't use Facebook as much because Facebook is for the older folks, maybe for you. But yeah, but Facebook is for the older folks. So we're kind of stray away from Facebook and we're mostly using Instagram and Twitter. So those are some of the things that we do, and realize that we have to meet the young people where they are at. Yeah. And a lot of the information that they consume, they're not watching news anymore. They are going on Instagram, they are going on Twitter. The first thing when I hear about something, the first place I go is head over to Twitter. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? What's happening? I'm very sensitive to certain issues. So depending on the issue, we might not post it on social media, but we might post something offering empowerment relating to the issue as well. And one of the things we also do is to allow our young people to come up with ideas. And going back to the safe space as well, I don't believe that I should always be taking the lead, but persons like Joseph that might be within the organization might say, hey, we can do this for social media. Let's do something unique. Let's do a challenge on social media. Yeah, so
the regulation is hard, but we can do more to influence the space.
Yes.
So that when persons are scrolling for the 2 hours, they book up on something from your organization. Joseph, you're on TikTok.
One time deleted the app.
Oh, all right. And that's a personal decision. But when you think about that space that young people are on, Shereika made mention of the fact they can sit down for 2 hours. I'll never forget that the first time that happened to me. I was on it for probably 20 minutes. And when I look up, it was literally 2 hours. It is really time consuming. How do we get into these spaces? Don't write off the Facebook, because even though you're reaching the young people, you want the older people to be able to assist. So don't write off Facebook. How can we be more of an impact in these spaces?
As Neville would have mentioned, challenges. We have to find unique ways to engage our young people. And the trending thing is challenges, the dance challenges.
There you go.
I'm seeing young people doing a lot of dancing stuff. You know, we can have some nice motivational music that have this type of energy.
It's not going to be attractive to them.
Which one? The motivational music? Yeah. Right.
No,
it has to be the popular songs.
It's going to be a popular song, but you get what I'm saying? Something that is attractive to them, and we can find it. We're innovative people, we're young people. We can find it. So we need to, invest in partnering. If you know somebody who's an influencer on TikTok and he has a positive message to say, we can allow the organization, the community agencies, to just participate. So JYAN can always participate with JYAN. JYAN, with Neville's organization, we can always participate on that level. So I believe that we can use up social media like TikTok in that regard, because people are always on it. They're always scrolling, they're always sending it to their friends and so on. So it's really a nice strategy that we can employ.
And you made mention of the type of music, and we understand the music's influence on our young people, but there are a lot of young persons who do spin-offs or
right.
Yeah, so maybe we can find some of them and push them and push their songs and their music instead of some of the ones that are more controversial.
I think, like, because I see a lot of young people, they remix a song, them remix them, so we can get the young people to remix the songs that are trending, and they will use them and grab the crowd and allow our messages to get across properly.
Let me also add to it that we need to teach our young people how to use social media responsibly and what to look out for. Because once again, there are a lot of predators out there for both the young boys and the young girls. You have to be cognizant of what you post online, what you share online, and what you reshare as well. So we have to teach them, although we're looking at how we can use it, you also have to be mindful of the challenges that it poses online as well, because it can lead to the detriment.
Yeah, it's true. All right, so we've been looking at different things that we can do, whether it's through church, organization, or the government. So I want next giveaway, drop 2 of them in the chat. First person to drop 2 of them, 2 of the things that schools or government institutions can do to help to raise awareness and to support things that are against exploitation and harassment. Drop 2 of them that we've said, and you win a prize. Neville cannot enter again, and Shereika cannot enter. And Shereika looking like she's hoping. Let's jump into the chat quickly. Trishana says the youth in Manchester needs more attention. Mentorship trips across Jamaica and short skills training is needed. On that point, a lot of organizations that you guys and most of the organizations are really Kingston centered or Kingston, Spanish Town, the corporate area, and certain communities. What? Let me jump in on this. Neville, why are you holding your head and smiling? What are we doing to expand outside of these borders? All right, Shereika first. Shereika is ready.
We actually have youth advocates across the island, and that's actually something that I look for in their applications. I'm from Manchester. I work in Kingston twice a week, and I travel in for work, so I do not live here. And so I also appreciate the perspective, that rural perspective in the issues that we're talking about. So I actually look for that, and then we support them by helping them with travel stipends when they need to come in. Like, we do have our workshops in Kingston, but it's never something that's going to be at a cost to them to come in for that. So.
Nice.
So we have to look at the challenges. One of the major challenges is lack of funding to reach a lot of these places. So the height is willing, but the pocket is weak, especially from an organization standpoint. But what we do, especially with our ambassadors, they say, hey, find a program that you want to do, you're passionate about. You already know what are the core mandates of the organization. So if you want to do a conflict resolution training in Manchester, or if you want to do something in Montego Bay, we will help you to plan it, execute it, and we will come down. But at the end of the day, we leave our ambassadors to plan and execute, and we offer support for them.
Nice. All right, so nobody is jumping at that one. So let me repeat. So there's a nice gift for somebody who can tell us 2 things or give us 2 ways we can create safe and supportive environments for Jamaican youth.
Can I enter again?
All right, let's move on. We're winding down. See, Grace and learn from the last time, Grace and never just write one and then wait to write the next one. She put them together now. She said sex education in school, a comprehensive program, as the panel has said, very important, and teaching conflict resolution. All right, Grace and see, I never even tell her say win. See, I tell you already, right? So please send us an email.
Grace and I can't get piece of your price if it's food or if somebody a piece of.
We're winding down. So there are persons who've been exploited and harassed. You guys made mention of your institutions and your organizations, but based on and you as well, Joseph, based on what you have been doing, what you've been a part of, what are some of the other institutions or organizations that exist and we don't necessarily need an NGO, but even based on what the government is doing, based on what you know, where can I get help? Somebody is watching. Where can I get help? I need help. Ladies first.
I was just about to say, it's so sad. I guess it depends on the kind of exploitation or harassment you're facing. I know there are government agencies. We have, the CPFSA is there. But then I also don't want to present these agencies as if I'm not aware of any of the issues that exist within them, or I think that this is something that's perfect. I don't think so. And I'm so sad about that, and I hope we actually can do more to create more of these spaces that are not NGOs, because I really think when we actually think about it, it's mostly NGOs that would do that kind of work to bring the safe spaces together outside of, CPFSA, as I had mentioned. But yeah, the Parenting Support Commission, I saw someone mention that as well, as, but that is also a government agency, so.
You also have Sisoko Center. You have that as well, especially if you are sexually abused, both men and women. You can also reach out to them.
Say that part again, both who?
Male and female.
So just
women,
in
men,
case
and,
people,
yeah, because men do get exploited sexually as well, and Sisoko also work for them. So
from memory, I think Sisoko is Center for the sexual
offenses and child abuse, but they're actually the police.
Yes,
they
just
are
an arm of the police.
Right, and you also have other initiatives. I think a good one was the Peace Management Initiative, and that really looked at gang violence and young men. You also have Rise Life Management, but that's also a NGO that they work with inner city youth, especially from volatile communities, to empower them, especially it relates to crime and gang. Even within you also have, if you're looking at exploitation and you're looking at trafficking as well, you have NATFA-TIP, which is the National Task Force Against Trafficking in Person. I think they are doing a very good job. I work for them where I did some social media, and they all also, so that's a space where if you know someone that is being trafficked, the list I get it.
That's fine, man.
Yeah, but trafficked, they can reach out to the NATFA-TIP unit, and also have other initiatives as well that's really playing a critical. They also have VPA, which is the Violence Prevention Alliance as well. So these are some organizations or entities. I also have a friend of mine, organization that work with sex workers as well, so they can get that knowledge as well as, and there are a plethora of other organizations out there. It's as simple as just Googling. I think again, everybody watching, we have to take the responsibility that if we do know that we are being exploited, it might be difficult, but there are safe spaces out there, persons that they can reach out to, an organization that they can reach out to that can offer that kind of support, and just reach out. And if you're afraid to reach out to these organizations, they can always reach out to me and I can make that connection as well, because exploitation is real, and a lot of times both men and women, boys and girls, they might not want to talk up about the issue. They would rather go to a third party, and we have to also understand that young people tend to be shy, especially when it comes down to sexual exploitation. They don't want to speak up. They might want somebody. So if you know a close friend as well, just ask them, what are some of these organizations that trust, that's a safe friend that they trust, what are some of the organizations? And yeah.
Joseph, so first things first, a lot of people who are being exploited or harassed don't even know, based on not being taught, that this is what it is. You watch TV, you listen to the radio. The media is a big factor. What can the media do to help raise this awareness?
Use influencers. There are a lot of influencers that are able to just use their platform to reach a lot of people. So just simply partnering with the right people in the right spaces. For example, you have a pretty good Instagram following. So organizations can, work with you to talk about issues. One of the things that I noticed on your page is that you talked about fathers. And I looked on the page and I was quite inspired. There are a lot of other pages that address certain youth-related issues. And, we can just use social media from that angle by just using the influencers, allowing them to partner with the organization. We have seen how Digital use Valiant for those their promotional thing. But what about Neville's organization using it and partnering with the government? Having having these social media proliferation, just having it, sent across you, because they're going to always send out the information. Once it's something that is affecting the youth, they're going to send it out, because there's always the need to share these type of experiences. So that's just my perspective on it.
Yeah, and I see persons in the chat sharing their views. So keep the conversation going. We're wrapping up. She made mention of fact influencers. Don't just think influencers. A lot of people, especially the older people, and the influencers, what is that? Not. It's literally doing a lot. It's literally influencing change. There are people out there. So the media, from your perspective, are they doing enough? First thing first, you think they're doing enough?
No, there's more that can be done.
There's more that can always be done. Are they doing enough?
No, not necessarily. But I can tell you, I really love that program about the sex thing, the sex education thing. I love that. But one thing is that the media is about money and making money. Same thing with influencers as well. So as much as we might want influencers to come on board, if we're going to use the brand and the image, and I can tell you from a very learned experience, lived experience, influencers, you have to come at the table with something. Not all influencers will give their image free. But for the media, I think they need to have more programs, initiatives, online, streamline, especially like a dedicated hour or something, have those conversations. Let's say, for example, the Star have a very huge platform. CVM does something with their youth program and CVM at Sunrise. I know TVJ also does a similar thing as well. But more can be done. We need to have more comprehensive conversations about exploitation, looking at sexual exploitation, looking at harassment, what harassment is. I think a brilliant program that I can pitch to TVJ is to have like a youth panel and Dean Jackson program where you can have even survivors talking, sharing the story. How did they overcome? What were some of the challenges? What are the resources made available to them? So persons looking on can say that they can break free from exploitation and that harassment that they are facing.
And Jane can sponsor that segment, right?
Yes, I think Jane could be a beautiful sponsor for that segment.
And Neville, I do agree with you to a large extent. The media hasn't been doing much, but for example, there are some organizations which are trying. For example, Talk Up Youth. I know a lot of young persons who have been a part of that program, and they do this thing, Instagram lives, and they will go live. And I'm telling that there are student leaders at university that have a lot of following. So if we can just tap into their base and let them understand the mission, then we can use their platform as well. We don't have to always use those who want payment, but the student leaders, and they actually do lives where they talk about issues that youths are facing. You can always check it out, the Talk Up Youth initiatives.
I know it. I've been at it a couple of times.
There we go. So we can use up these spaces to help, to talk about issues that are affecting our youth.
Yeah, and payment doesn't even have to be finances. It can be supporting. It can be so you give, you get. But I do agree that we have to reach to a point where we do agree that, hey, this is bigger than the money.
The money.
Yeah. We're closing. Final point we're looking on now. You made mention of Caribbean interaction earlier with your institution. Is there any program out there, any initiatives out there that we can look at that you've seen and take things from it and incorporate it in Jamaica to help against the exploitation and harassment of Jamaican youth?
I actually don't know what the programs are. Yeah. I hope someone else does.
Okay. Do you know of any?
Yes, there are actually a lot of programs. But once again, similar challenges that we are facing in Jamaica is also facing. So if you even look at the Commonwealth Youth Council, if you look at SAIPAN, Commonwealth Youth Peace Ambassador Network, if you look at other regional programs, they are facing the same challenges.
Funding.
But one of the things that I've realized, especially looking at Barbados, is their government is a little bit more supportive of youth programs. I want to say supportive. I know a friend personally that gets support directly. I know a friend that gets support directly for youth programs. What I realize is that, especially when looking at a Jamaican standpoint, our leaders, our elected leaders, look at it from an angle that, to me, and this is my personal view, not that of the organization, disclaimer, our leaders don't see young people at the time of elections, and I think more focus needs need to be had, that it should be a continuous thing, continuous support, not just that, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to take some pictures and then that's about it. You know, we need to change that narrative, not just locally, but regionally.
All right, we're going to do the final points. Anything you want to add before we close? Joseph, we're going to go with youth first. What would you like to say to those out there who've been watching, persons who will hear this as it relates to exploitation and harassment of the Jamaican youth? What should you remember from this conversation, if nothing else?
Remember that you're not alone. You know, we have organizations, we have people who are willing and able to assist you. There are a lot of people who have vision that go beyond, you know, what another average man would think, and we are there for you. There are a lot of plans in place for you. We need you to participate. We know that when we hear the word participate, we feel as if there's something that somebody wants to take from us, but in actuality, where people are out there looking out for you. Personally, from personal experience, we have social media to our advantage. We have to use up these engagements properly, because if we take a look in our communities, it's really hard for many young people to get therapeutic sessions. In my community, it takes you 3 months to get a therapeutic session at the Maple Hospital. It's really 3 months it takes for you to really get assistance on issues, to talk about it. Sometimes the guidance counselors, even at schools, they look, you know, sometimes work is really hard on them. They're not being able to assist all the children at once. So we need, you know, we need to understand as young people that there are people who are there in every, they're always there on social media. They're always one call away. I'm sure that Neville can provide his contact with somebody. I'm sure that Shereika can provide her contact with somebody if you need to reach out. If you want to get assistance in Manchester, I'm seeing in the chat that there is no trips in Manchester, but we do have persons here who are willing to provide the assistance. And as young people, we always have innovative ideas. So if we do have a vision, if we do see a problem, we want you to understand that your voice is important and you are able to contribute to the cause. And if you want to contribute, just reach out to these organizations. The list have been, you know, they have shared a lot of organizations that helps. And if you want to start your own, you know, you can always work with people who are willing to give. So that's my final words.
Yeah, and Celia, I saw you were sharing some of the sites that persons can go on. So I'm going to ask you to just reshare so I can mention of them. Before I get to Shereika, we have, is still one guidance counselor, 2 guidance counselors to a school?
It's 2, and
I had one. That's why I'm asking, you know, but I remember there's an assistant that comes in sometimes. But
I think it's 2, and
wow.
When I was leaving high school, actually, I think the government was implementing the idea of having a social worker assigned to a high school, considering the social issues that have been reaching our students. And I believe that we need to have more, you know, balance. Every school should have a male guidance counselor, female guidance counselor to attend to the needs of the different students. We have 2 genders. So.
I think 4 would be nice. 1 upper school, 1 lower school, 1 male, 1 female would be nice. And Omar says it's based on the school's population. Thank you, Omar. I'm going to save the beauty for last. Go ahead, Mr. Senior.
All right. So, any advice? So it's not just one, it's more than one. So first thing, identify what exploitation and what harassment looks like. Identify, find somebody that you trust, that you can talk to, have that conversation, have that safe space, have that mentor kind of vibe where you can reason with on a one-on-one and identify, because and a lot
simply if it feels wrong,
wrong. So identify, then know your rights. If you know your rights, then that's another thing. Know your right and just have a conversation. He alluded to it. You are not alone. There are a lot of other persons out there that can offer advice. So just go out, seek it, and just put yourself in a space. And I love the word of safe space. Find that space where you can fit in, regardless if it be JYAN, YIPC, JNWay. Find a space where you have like-minded people that understand issues and you can have that conversation with. At the end of the day, right, it's not going to be easy, but if you find persons that's like-minded, that share a similar vision, you know, then you're basically on the right path. And here at YIPC, you can come and have that safe space, have some free food, learn about life, learn leadership, network with some change makers in the industry, and you can step outside of your comfort zone. So that's my advice. Come on over. Let's have some fun.
Thank you. And if you don't remember YIPC, you can say, this is me saying, YIPC.
You can just say positive org. Our Instagram, Twitter is positive org.
Positive
JA.
org. But me want to say YIPC, youth inspiring positive change. Lady amongst the gents, the rose amongst the thorns. What do you have to say to somebody? Either it is, let's say you're reaching out to an organization, and let's say you're also reaching out to somebody who's being impacted as well.
So I feel like our other two panelists have given such good responses to that. And I feel I would like my message or my ask to be to the government, right? I think young people are doing so much on the ground. They're part of so many different organizations, trying so hard every day to make things work for us. And I think we really need some support with our programs. There needs to be somebody that's looking at the big picture of everything, and we need to start seeing some solutions that are not just tackling one issue at a time, but that serve to tackle multiple issues at a time. And we need to see that our legislators are working together to create solutions that ultimately protect children and don't seek to further exploit them. And that when children come into contact with, especially we saw the issues recently with government agencies, for example, who are supposed to protect them, that those are actually supposed to be safe spaces. So please.
The youth have spoken. Are you listening, government? We're going to be throwing up our poll to close out, but just to reiterate, so we have the Instagram address of positive.org.ja. We also have www.jnbank.com/youthbanking. That is to get assistance, right, Celia? JNWay, right? And www.instagram.com youthadvocate.ja as well. Get on those websites, get on those platforms, follow, and get all the information you need, add your suggestions, whatever, in the DMs. That's the only reason you should slide it into the DMs. If you're going to help, or if you're going to assist financially, or you're seeking help yourself. And of course, we are going to be having a return next week. But before I get into next week, let's go with the post-class Thrivometer. So, has your mood improved, right? Since the start of life class, I remember some persons saying that they were, I think a couple of persons saying they were miserable, but most persons were good or okay. So let's see how that has changed, if it has changed, or how it has improved. Did the class increase your awareness of the exploitation and harassment faced by Jamaican youth? If it has not, I'll tell you straight up, that's on you. You probably never listening. Yeah. How likely are you to actively promote and support initiatives that aim to encourage the protection of our youth in Jamaican society? And you can answer there. And the final one, if you've registered for next week live class, and we're going to go into next week. So every week, JN keeps getting better and better and better and better. They're consistently good, consistently better, consistently great. And next week, we're going to be looking at success and survival tips and testimonies of entrepreneurs. We're going to be speaking to some Jamaican entrepreneurs, and I tell you, it's a stacked panel. This week was stacked, we don't know about jump on me, but it's going to be a stacked panel. And we're going to be having Gordon Swaby from Edufocal Limited. We're going to be having Randy McLaren from Brescia and Jackie Jackson from Ideator. And I love this panel in particular because I know all of them close, we're friends, and I look forward to the wealth of knowledge that they're going to be giving. It's going to be great. Today was great, and I want to thank our panel for coming. But let's look at the post-class Thrivometer. So most persons, they have improved their moods, all right? So it's either a yes or a sort of. And we were praying for those who are not yet, improving their mood. Hear what you do. Go back and watch live class again, and trust me, your mood will be improved. Did the class increase your awareness? So, in other words, did Neville, Shereika, and Joseph do a good job? And they are saying yes, the majority, overwhelming majority says either significant or to some extent. So good job, guys. You did a good job. And how likely are you to actively promote and support initiatives that aim to encourage the protection of our youth in Jamaican society? Jamaica is going to be better because everybody said they are impacted and they are likely to be actively promoting and supporting the initiatives. Not one person will not do that. And have you registered for next week's live class? I want to see how many persons have registered for live class next week. All right. Oh, so there's another question. I missed one. Sorry, guys. So the majority of persons said yes, And those who say not yet, they are going to do so. So we're giving them 30 seconds. Go.
Can I add something?
You should say, can I register? That's what you should say. That's the cue, Neville. Go register, Neville.
I would come out to say go register.
Okay.
But if you're looking for a job opportunity, you can just reach out to our page, and we usually have some monthly events that is paid, especially, it's the summer and you want to be actively involved, just reach out to the page if you're watching this and we can talk.
Nice. And everybody who answered the poll say they have received what they expected, right? They expected something from this class and they've gotten it. So good job against panelists. And we have Canada in the building. So thank you for joining us, Maureen. And I'm sure we have some other countries that have been consistently represented for life class. So I agree with you, Maureen. It was interesting. I enjoyed every moment. And that is it for today's JYAN Circle life class. It has been an amazing day, wealth of information and knowledge. And I'm looking forward to a better Jamaica. Every time I come on life class, it starts with me. I feel better. The panel leaves feeling better. The team leaves feeling better, and then the society, our homes are impacted, Jamaica is impacted, and the world is impacted. So until next week, I am Brian Cuff, the Poetic MC, BMC, right? And I'm looking forward to seeing you next week, where it's going to be another exciting and engaging panel and an engaging discussion. I will miss one person in particular, but I won't say anything else. Love you guys. Thank you for joining, and see you next week.
Ciao.
Talk.